Okay, it's 3:30. I'll call a special meeting, emergency notice, special meeting, city council will order. Ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll respect the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would note that we're short a few people, but we do have a quorum. The single issue we have is liability, the liability insurance policy renewal. Okay, liability insurance policy renewal. Michael.
Yes. Again, we're here today because we just on Tuesday received our liability renewal from Travelers. We've been with Travelers with a background for 2 years now. And so we received that on Tuesday, and the renewal is up April 1st, which is Monday. Hence the emergency meeting. So do apologize for that when we got our information. We did review, and Jamie is here with Loudon Insurance, as well as Amy Jenkins. We did take a review of Travelers' proposal. Currently with Travelers, we're paying $141,000 a year for our liability. Travelers' renewal came in at $178,000, which is $37,000 more than what we're currently paying. Briefly, and I'll let Jamie get into some more of the technical part of that, but just in summation of that, we had a lot of large claims in this year, and some claims that were considered in the past that were very large. An incident with the trash truck and a couple of sewer backups have really guided this thing to a larger increase. Jamie actually, upon getting that information, had contacted other providers to see if they would give us a quote, and we did receive a quote from a company called One Beacon. One Beacon is an offspring of commercial insurance. That actually came in. Jamie showed them all of our claims and all of our information, and they quoted us at $146,410, which is a difference of $5,410 over what we're currently paying. Again, they had access to all of our information to look at our claims and make a quote. More than likely, they lowballed the quote, I'm sure, but they did have that information. So that's why we're bringing this to you today, is for a decision. Looking at both quotes, they're very comparable, so I think it's pretty safe to say it's close to an apples-to-apples comparison. The One Beacon is, I think, a AA rated. Is it a AA rated?
It's an A rated.
It's an A rated, as well as Travelers. So they're both fairly good institutions to provide liability insurance. One Beacon is also endorsed by the West Virginia Municipal League, so they have credentials. So essentially what we're here today, and I'll let Jamie talk a little bit more in depth about the claims if you have questions, is really to make a decision about who we're going to go with as far as liability insurance coverage for 2013-14. Again, Travelers did come in at $178,000. One Beacon came in at $146,410. And we're currently paying $141,000. I'm going to step out and let Jamie go a little bit more in depth in those numbers and answer any technical questions you have as far as this is concerned, and I'll feel happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Can we ask you a couple questions first, Mark?
Sure, go ahead.
Normally, when does Travelers give us a update on what the quote's going to be? Is it normal that they wait 2 days before they file?
I'll defer to Jamie.
You know what, a lot of that gets back to after they get all the information from going together. Typically in a policy of this size, it's usually been about 2 weeks ahead of time. This time they're waiting on some more loss runs and information to come through, get it finalized. Part of the information is waiting on to see where the finalized claim with the death claim that involved the city came in at.
But commercial has the same information that Travelers has.
Commercial had all the claims information as well, because they actually they were on the policy before Travelers took over.
Are they both endorsed by the municipal league?
I'm not sure Travelers particularly, but I know One Beacon.
Right. Just one beacon is endorsed by the municipal league.
Same deductibles?
Very close. One of the major differences as far as the deductible, with the policies, one beacon on your liability is set up, and this, to fine tuning the difference in them, with a $1 million occurrence and a $5 million aggregate. Traveler's policy is set up with a $2 million occurrence and a $2 million aggregate. And then on top of that, the city has a $5 million umbrella. One of the difference in deductibles, though, is the one beacon quote has a 0 retention. So if the city were to have a very large claim, such as a $3 million liability claim, with Travelers, once you go from the $2 to the $3 million mark, the city's going to incur an additional $10,000 deductible. With the one beacon claim, there's a 0 retention, it'll go straight into the umbrella.
Who carries the umbrella?
Both companies offer the umbrella. Both companies are offering a $5 million umbrella within the quotes.
One of the concerns that we kind of talked about a little bit was that pretty good bet that Travelers is going to stay here and do business, and One Beacon could decide to move out of the state. And what happens in that scenario is we get, I didn't quite understand the email.
It's a great question. I mean, with either one of the companies, obviously you want to look for the future. Travelers has been here and have been in the state for, I believe, over 10 years now. And I think it was, if you remember when the dates were, 19.
It seems like
They've been here for a long time. At this particular point in time, Dave Stacy with Wells Fargo representing Travelers has informed us that if the city were to reapply for the Travelers program today with the current losses, that they would not qualify, would not qualify for the Travelers program. So with municipalities, there are fewer and fewer companies at this particular point in time who are willing to take on that sizable of a risk. At this particular point in time, good possibility you would be looking at the risk pool. I mean, there are some other options which we would look at and do everything we could to find you another carrier.
However, there's also a possibility that if our claims are down for this coming year renewal and even the year after that, the Travelers, we probably have an opportunity to come back in and get our business back. And the only reason that their renewal went so high again is because of these large significant claims, and quite honestly some indication on the city's behalf as far as incidents that we really weren't addressing some of those claims, to be quite frank with you. Backing into vehicles and things of that nature. And I spoke to Jerry Arnold, regardless of who we go with, and trying to find ways that we can address some of those issues. I've had good discussion with them, so we're working on some mitigation as far as that's concerned, because that was part of the factor that came into play with our renewal from Travelers. They're seeing those incidents kind of occurring over and over again, especially after a large claim that happened with the trash company. I'm just being frank with you. And they're really not seeing us changing our habits and our ways. And that's something that we will do a better job of. And again, we are looking at policy, vehicular policy, and protocol and procedure for that as well, and ways that we can address that and not have those claims in the future. So.
Well, I mean, that's just, you're saying people are not being careful the way they need to be. I mean, that's the bottom line, right?
If you look at the claims, that would indicate that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you also have to understand that we're in the property casualty market is taking huge hits with, Hurricane Sandy and everything that happened up in the Northeast and some other things. So there are increases all through the system in respect to renewals. What I don't particularly like about Travelers is Tuesday they give you a significant quote, and we have to make the decision because of the expiration of April the 1st. Oftentimes they'd come in and say, here it is, but we're going to go ahead and continue for another 2 weeks or a month under the current can allow you to make kind of proper decisions that need to be made. So I don't like travelers doing that to us. I don't think that's right. And I think something that we'll look at in the future is, I don't know if the municipal league has ever considered doing self-insurance for these kind of programs that, you have a third-party administrator working on it, and you can have different deductibles and go out and different stop losses and have reinsurance, and ultimately it may save the city money over the long term, but that's a much more in-depth analysis.
The one thing about Travelers is that they claim to have a 94% retention rate. They stick by their quote, not mine, their clients. And there's value to that. I just don't know if there's a $32,000 value to that. And when you look at it, and my logic behind this and thinking about it is obviously there's a significant savings. Did they lowball us? Yeah, probably to a certain extent. But they did have the opportunity, and when they did quote, they did look at our claims, and they had access to all that, so they weren't really flying in this blind.
And we've had them before, you said.
No, they've had consumer
Right.
for something else.
We've had commercial,
Commercial.
One Beacon's part of commercial?
they're one of the carriers
Subsidiaries.
that they represent, yes.
And I look at that, and both of these quotes are very similar. And I kind of compared that to how we do with our bids. You always look for lowest and best bid. And sometimes the lowest bid, we may have a bad relationship with them, and that may disqualify them. But, all things being equal, and sitting in the position that I'm in, I must have to recommend One Beacon.
I think you're right, Michael, and especially they're both A-rated, and Beacon is endorsed or whatever the word you want to use by the municipal league. And I think that gives me a comfort feeling anyway.
It provides credibility.
Yeah, and I think the $32,000, that's a very significant difference, and I don't think we'd be doing our fiduciary responsibility if we didn't take your recommendation, which you said is One Beacon.
My concern there would be, are we making a $32,000 savings this year, but if you look at, say, over a 5-year period, you say, that One Beacon lowballed this. Well, are they just trying to get our business this year and make it up over time? Or it seems to me the real issue here is the fact that we haven't been able to control our losses with some repetitive kinds of accidents. And had we done a better job in the past year, we probably wouldn't be faced with a 178 quote. We'd be faced with another 146 or whatever quote. We would expect an increase, but maybe not as much as we have. So I'm a little concerned about taking a short-term approach and say, okay, it's a little different when you bid something out. When you bid something out, you're basically never going to have this again. You're bidding out some kind of project that's a one-time event. This is not a one-time event. This will happen to us next April. So how does that fit in?
I guess I would take a viewpoint, Rich, that the travelers ever come here. A really good insurance company will come to the insured's operation and say, we're seeing a pattern of behavior that is concerning us from an insurance point of view, and we need to sit down and work with you to what's happening at your particular location that's allowing this, whether it's a cavalier attitude or whatever, to allow these occurrences to keep going on. I have never known the travelers to visit us or do an operational check and see.
They've been in. They've been in and done risk assessments.
And have they written us up as being sort of not being as responsible as we should be?
No, the only thing that they really mentioned to us was an assessment that they did a year ago, and they had talked about kind of us keeping an internal point system for vehicular drivers in much more severe cases like DUIs, multiple traffic offenses. Really didn't particularly address vehicular control of backing into vehicles or placed objects. But, you can look at the claims report and you can see those up and down the report. Obviously, there's a problem somewhere. And given, quite honestly, what happened with the trash truck situation a few years ago, and you're a company and you're looking at, well, they're kind of doing the same thing over again, you get a little excited and nervous. And I think that's a reflection in this traveler's quote. I'll play advocate here. From one Beacon standpoint, I'm not, okay, let's say hypothetically that they have low ball. Listen, and probably they have. I mean, my gosh, they still have quite a bit of ground to make up, 32,000 to make up where Travelers was. And now that we're armed with a lot more information and we know, and we're exploring ways to mitigate some of those issues that Travelers had issue with, who's to say, but I'm trying to be optimistic. In fact, I hope claims are down, particularly for this particular type of event or situation that occurs. I'm hoping that we can do things to mitigate that, and we'll see. But I'm confident, I feel that if we can, and Travelers said they won't quote us if we walk away. It's kind of the indication. I believe they gave Jamie, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I'd like to think if we have our claims low for a year or two, I'd like to think they'd come back and quote us. I mean, it's just kind of like we are with health insurance sometimes. We just have to shop around and look for the best thing for the city and our taxpayers. And we'll probably have to do this with this insurance as well.
I think we should give them the opportunity. I mean, who knows what they're going to quote next year? Hopefully they just didn't lowball so that they got our insurance. We won't know that till next year, but if you can save $32,000 with this quote, I think we should take advantage of it.
Dave, I mean, really the big difference is in the two quotes. One of the things is one Beacon looked at your largest claim, which was a fairly significant claim as I believe their exact terminology of it was a shock loss claim. And they felt a shock loss claim was something which they looked at it in the ratings, but they didn't take it into as much consideration. When Travelers was looking at the losses in the ratings, and both companies, as you said, Michael said, have complete access to it. When Travelers looked at it, they took that and took it more into accounting. Part of the reason they did that is it was a backing up claim, and there was over 2 more instances of a backing up claim. So their fear was that a shock loss is more of a one-time loss. It's not going to reoccur. Travelers' fear is that, this is still an ongoing issue that needs to be addressed. So that's how that plays a part of the difference in the rating. As Michael was saying, no matter which company you go with, the indication I've been given by Travelers as of right now is that, if the city were to come in today, they wouldn't quote it. I mean, it would not qualify for the program. Now, again, if you look at a year or 2 years or 3 years down the road and we get these losses under control, particularly some of the ones like these backing up instances, I'm sure you would be re-looked at and reviewed. But I couldn't agree with Michael and everybody's statements of one of the things that has to be focused on is just controlling the losses. I mean, particularly the ones that can be controlled like that.
From my standpoint, with all things equal, it comes down to dollars and cents. And you know my recommendation on that.
You want a motion?
What's your pleasure, council?
I'll make a motion that we accept one Beacon for our insurance for this next year.
Second.
Further discussion? Comment? All in favor of the motion signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it.
Thank you.
That
Concludes.
concludes our meeting.